There we go. All right. Hey, welcome back. Round three, session three, ladies and gentlemen. We are so happy that Sonja has decided to join us back here. And we are going to wrap up some things today by talking about recapping the emotional journey and the obstacles sometimes that you'll face during that journey from an emotional perspective. We're going to talk about executing your plan in detail so that we can really give you the meat and taters, I call it, of what you need to do. And then we're going to talk about how Sonja can take care of you and help you along this journey. So, again, welcome, Sonja. Thank you for coming back. Really appreciate you. And hey, let's just jump right in. Go ahead, opening comments from you, ma'am.
I'm just happy to be here. So thank you, Keith, thanks for inviting me back to have this third session. I'm just like I said, I'm just happy to be here.
Yes, excellent, excellent. All right. So from the emotional journey, I know you sort of like have a precursor that you sort of wanted to say before you jumped right into that topic. And go ahead and share that.
You got it. I think one is actually something that I just posted today. It's on my Facebook, my company Facebook page, and also Instagram page as well. Because I was just really kind of thinking about what is someone's financial leadership style. And when I was contemplating that, I just, even with my own life, I was just thinking, well, how do we, first of all, even know what that leadership style is? Because it's really important. It's going to really impact how are we approaching our finances. And for me, the way I feel that we get the pulse of someone's financial leadership style, and I see this with my clients across the board as well, it's that what do we do when our finances might just be even a little bit chaotic? Like, what is our scramble? What is our default? What do we do? And so, as far as of course, there are more ways to respond, but these are the typical ways. And do you lead with this steady, calm hand, like through the storm? And a lot of times when we're looking at finances, we don't know exactly how it's going to work itself out. And sometimes when we look at the numbers, it can actually be quite alarming when we can see what the expenses are versus the income coming in, and also see what mismanagement is going on specifically. Honestly, the grocery store is the big black hole. So what do we do? Do we lead with a clear, calm hand through that, or do we avoid? And when we avoid, it's almost like we just kind of want to dig our head in the sand and just go la la la. It's going to kind of fix itself somehow, some way. Don't quite know how, and then let's just go out to eat because I don't want to. I don't want to really look and see what's going on? Or do we react? Is it like a knee jerk reaction that we're having in that moment? Or do we freeze? And so, Keith, for you, what would you say? What is the way that you would respond when things are a little bit dicey and you're feeling a little like
Yeah.
there's heat under the collar? Like where would you go?
I, to be honest with you, if I perceive it to be overwhelming, I avoid. I'll be honest with you. I avoid. I'll say, you know what? I'm going to do it later because right now I just can't. I just can't. Right. So being a guy, right, I go back into my cave and I try to do something low hanging fruit, easy to do, I can accomplishment, whatever, pretty
Yes.
bad. I know, pretty bad. And but then when it's the clock is at the last hour, all of a sudden I'll just jump into that reactive mode that you're talking about, and I'll
Yes.
go full bore and I'll get the job done. But I put myself under a lot of stress and pressure in doing that. So I can
Yes.
totally relate. That's why I was sort of grinning while you were describing me personally, you know.
Yes. There's nothing like a good deadline to get it done, right?
So, let me tell you, without them, I'd be in trouble.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and when I was thinking about like what is my response, and honestly, I can resonate with all of them. Like there have been moments like I can say, for an example, there was a time frame I think I probably shared on one of the earlier podcasts where there was a good couple weeks that I could not even look at my own numbers. And this was after a divorce, it was overwhelming. I didn't even have energy to wash my hair. And this is typically the place I would go to as far as looking at numbers. And whether we had money or not doesn't even matter. It was just always my safe place to go. But for whatever reason, I was like, I'm just trying to breathe here right now. And
Yeah.
it was terrifying. And so that was very much a freeze response. That is not a typical response for me though, because it is to look, but I think when we have different things that are going in our lives, I think sometimes it can bring about responses that aren't our typical responses in our normal everyday. But that's why
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, like, how do you know, like, when life gets a little chaotic, then what do you do? And I just did not want to look at it at all. And of course, we know
Hmm.
that'll fix it, right?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And so, and so I would say overarchingly though, it is a calm, steady hand, like in the no
Mhm.
matter what. And so that's the overarching, though that was a definite a dip, like, and so I can really resonate with what that feels like. And so I just would just encourage you listening here today that, just think about what is your leadership style, because it's important to know how are you leading your finances, because the truth of the matter is this: no one else is going to come in and do it for you. Actually, the world is going to take you very, very far away of you having a leadership style with your money. And typically there, I guess another option, which I didn't even mention, is you don't even really have one, right? It's like you just roll out of bed and you just there is no strategy. So I guess that is an option too. So really the recommendation would be to let's create a leadership style so you can move forward in the no matter what, good, bad, indifferent. So you're the one in
Yeah.
control of your money and nobody else.
Yes. It's too bad. I was thinking that when people are feeling the strain, um, I've had friends, of course, that had drinking problems, right? And I would be there to support them as much as possible. But they would literally be able to call people, um, like a sponsor or somebody, right? Their sponsor, and they would
Mhm.
call them and they talk them off the cliff. You know what I mean? They would say, everything is going to be, they would know what to say. They have training in that, and I almost wish something like this could exist for people that when they feel that emotional buildup of stress and they want to avoid and because unfortunately the consequences, like you're saying, can be more of a problem later if you avoid too long, right? And that's
Right.
not good. Now you're gonna me when I work from a deadline. My goodness gracious, it's a good thing I don't drink or smoke because
Mhm.
I'd really have a problem. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
it's rather to be proactive, right?
It's
That's
true.
excellent.
It's so true. And I will not lie. I mean, there've been, many a day that I've received a text from a client and they're reaching out for those reasons, right? It could just be typically hard, something that they're just really looking for assistance to get to that next step.
Yeah,
And a lot of times what I'll hear from my clients, they'll say, I don't know why, but I just feel better, when we hang up the phone. And other times,
nice.
Keith, it's apps they invite me into the celebration of the moment as well. And
Yeah,
so it can just I can see it from all sides, celebration
yeah,
to just those moments that we just need a little bit of help from somebody else. And there's nothing wrong
yes.
with that.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, very good, very good. Well, how do you, if I may go a little deeper here, how do you balance the emotional roller coaster ride, right, in order to meet the goals, right? Can we have a clear path for that? What would you say?
I agree. And this is not something that's talked about very often. It's usually when we talk about finances and numbers, it's black and white. It's pretty cut and dry. Though what I've experienced is that our finances can be some of the biggest triggers with that fear, with that overwhelm, with that anxiety. And and we're not taught how to gracefully maneuver through that. Here in our society, we are taught to use other forms to basically separate us from the pain that we're feeling. And sometimes it's in when there is more of a crisis mode financially, and other times there's plenty of money coming in, but there's this deep inward sense of what is wrong with me. I still feel like something is missing. And so this is actually it's a strategy that I've been using for a handful, actually many years now. And for the first full 2 years, Keith, I never shared it, not even at all, with anyone else, because I just kept it to myself. It was like this
Mm,
something like this practice that I would do like inside my own mind. And I started getting such beautiful results from it. And what I love so much about it, I call it my expansion strategy. So it's going to be my gift to your listeners here today. And the beautiful thing is you can use it in any circumstance. You don't have to, it's not limited just to your finances. And so let's just use an example. Let's just imagine that you're in a moment of tension. And the thing is that we're typically in a moment of tension between we're here, we want to be here, and we don't quite know how to get there. And and there's the tension. And so how do we maneuver through that? And the problem is our minds can't take us there. And so what would happen for me back in the day, I would feel in that tension because of the not knowing exactly how we're going to go from here to here. And if you think about it, a month ago you were in the tension. Right now we're in the tension. 2 years ago, that's life. We're always going to be in the tension because we just don't know exactly how it is going to work itself out and what those steps are going to be. And so we do not need to fill a 20-page survey when we feel anger or anxiety or overwhelm. It's physically on us. And so, Keith, for
Mm.
you, how do you feel tension in your body? Like, what sensation do you feel?
Probably my shoulders and chest, arms, my upper torso. I
Mhm.
get pretty tight and intense, you know. That's
Me
that's
too.
where I bottle it up.
Is my shoulders, or I'm gonna suck in my stomach like I'm at the beach, like and not breathe.
Mm.
It's be like a
Yeah,
really, really shallow breath.
yeah.
And so when we feel that tension like physically in our bodies, then we want to have a trigger to go to do something else. And then this is it. We simply want to ask a question. So we're just basically, it's almost a way to challenge. And so there's nothing magical about these words that I'm going to share with you. Though for me, I use these words, what more is possible? So I'm going to give you an example. Before I learned this, I would look at my bank account, my business bank account, and in one moment I would think, oh my gosh, it's so great. And then like the next like 30 seconds, I'd think, oh, I wish it would be more. And I was flipping, flopping, like, wish it would be more, can't believe it's this great. And every time I turned around, what I could feel like within my company, I felt like every time I turned around, I was hitting a wall. It's like this wall of limitation. And not only was it just in my company, it was overall in my life. And one year, I don't even make New Year's resolutions. The one year, this is a really sad story. I made a New Year's resolution and it was one word, it was peace. Do you know how unpeaceful you have to feel like in your soul to have a New Year's resolution? And
Mhm.
that year, I never got it. And so it was the year after that that I learned this concept. And it was just to whenever you're in that tension, you want to just to do something different because if you have ever felt like fear or anxiety, those those emotions they don't release on their own. When I would feel it feels like a tidal wave, right? I'd feel like a tidal wave of anxiety, and then the next moment there's the next tidal wave of anxiety, and then it would just take me out, and I just need a nap. Right? I'm just done. And so
Mhm.
what I started to do from this class, as I would start to feel that anxiety bubble on up, no matter what it is, looking at my business bank account or just like I'm hitting every red light. You know what I mean? There's the tension that's bubbling up within me. And I would simply go to, okay, in my mind, what more is possible? And then on the breath out, so the breath in, I would feel the tension. So this is not about going, la la, I don't experience this, I'm not feeling it. I breathe in the tension and I breathe out what more is possible. Breathe in. And then I had to add to my question, what more is possible in this moment? Because sometimes when we're in the midst of anxiety, overwhelm, it is a moment by moment kind of deal. So I'm going to give you an example. You remember, Heath, when COVID hit, and it was that weekend that, I mean, the toilet paper was gone. I mean, and they're still stocking shelves, right?
Yeah.
So that Thursday before that happened, we're going tent camping in Georgia. So I go to Walmart. I'm getting hot dogs and s'mores. Like I am going like we're going camping. While we're camping, I'm on my phone just a little bit. And I'm like, man, this thing just really got bad. This COVID thing. So we get home. I go online to my local Walmart and they posted they're no longer open 24 hours. I do try to post an online Walmart order, which they're like, sister, no, you're going to come in and get your own stuff. We're not going to shop for you. And so my 16-year-old and I, we hop in the car and I live in the country. And it's like a 20-minute drive to get to Walmart. And we get there because they're going to open up at 8 o'clock. The employee comes out. She's like, so sorry, we're still stocking shelves. We've pushed the open time to 9 o'clock. So we have a whole hour to wait. I can't drive home and drive back. It'd be all driving time. And so we pop across the street. There's a Dunkin' Donuts, and we get like we risk our lives, like honestly, for an iced coffee. We get back to the Walmart parking lot, 45 minutes. What do I do? What do I pull out of my back hip pocket? Do I go on my phone? No. And this is the longest time that I've actually asked this. I felt the gravity of the situation. First of all, oh my gosh, I'm a mom. What was I thinking? Why did I bring my 16-year-old? Like, what was I thinking? You're like, and then should I have her sit in the car and stay in the car? I mean, we don't know. We didn't know. And so for 45 minutes, I am feeling the gravity of the situation. And on the breath out, I'm like, okay, what more is possible? And next moment in, next moment of gravity of the situation, and the next, what more? 40, I have to make it into a game because that is a long time to do this thing. And so in my mind, I'm like, what if I could be the one expensive person walking through the Walmart doors today when on Walmart's best day, like people aren't just excited to walk through the doors, right? It's always more expensive than what we think. But I'm like, I did it. 45 minutes. 9 o'clock, doors open, we go in like a car wreck. I look down the toilet paper aisle. It is wiped clean. There's nothing there. And what I realized about myself when I'm in an emergency shopping situation, the only thing that I had a reference to was hurricane shopping. So in my mind, I thought, okay, I need to get soup. But then I was like, wait a minute, we still have electricity. So I was like, okay, so I go to the back wall. They have the refrigerator wall. I'm picking up a carton of eggs off the back refrigerator wall, getting ready to put it into my cart. Before I do that, I hear this loud crash and crash, metal on metal crash. I look up and I see there's this guy pushing this big, huge metal cart full of toilet paper through the two metal doors. He catches my eye. I have to set down the eggs, put up my hand to receive toilet paper this man is sending or is handing to me, put it in my cart, said thank you. And so
Hmm.
in that moment, when I was leaning into the what more is possible, I'm feeling all the sensations of that moment. But I also want to say, well, what if? And so I personally have since made it into a prayer. I'm like, okay. And that day it was a prayer. I was like, hey, Lord, what more is possible? Because I just feel like, you know what, Sonja, I don't need to be the smartest person out there, but man, I just need to know who to lean into. Right. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to lean into the Lord, say, Lord, what more is possible in this moment? And I just believe that then whatever it is, I didn't ask for anything specific, but you know what happened? This is the secret. This is what happened. It literally got my eyes and my ears off of the gravity of the situation. I was fully aware, though it actually put my mind on something else, right? Lord, what more is possible? What more is possible in this moment? And then guess what my eyes were looking for as I walked through the Walmart doors? I was looking for what more is possible. My ears were listening. My whole antenna signal is now attuned to, okay, Lord, what more is possible? And what I
Hmm.
found in my life, whether it is getting toilet paper handed to you, during COVID, or it is like this day to day when at times when I've looked at my finances and there have been times where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I just don't know in days past. I'm like, I just don't know how this is going to work out. And there is something about it because I'm a numbers girl. And there have been times in my life I'm like, there's no way that should have worked out. And somehow it did, and I can't even tell you how. And
Hmm.
so there's a process of us moving our feet, us knowing our numbers, that is our responsibility. So I think that if we leave this other because our finances impact us mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and oh, by the way, financially. And so we're
Hmm.
whole people as well. So for me, that is what I pull out of my back hip pocket. It is
Yeah.
what more is possible. So any
Yeah.
questions about that? Or how does that
You know,
resonate?
I think I hope everyone understands that anyone can perform the mechanics of something, but the only way that you can, this is what I'm hearing from you, and which is I'm grateful because if you're not mentally and emotionally stable, right? You know what I mean? And knowing how to maybe navigate the stress that you're talking about, right? How are you going to do the mechanical part, right? Because anybody can fill out a spreadsheet, right? But
Right.
if you're not mentally and emotionally ready to do that or able, you know what I mean? You're not in a good place. You're never going to get there. So these methods or this approach to me in getting yourself in the right mindset is awesome. You know, I just hope that people when they hear this, you know, this isn't a kumbaya moment. This is me needing to mentally and emotionally sharpen myself and to be aware that like you said earlier, there's going to be a lot of tense moments in life. There's going to be a lot of stress in life. Managing that and maneuvering through that is how we can continually do the mechanics without losing our mind. You know, so I
Yes.
appreciate the approach, and I just have to. I almost wish, like I said earlier, I almost wish there was. We have in our church we have a prayer circle, right? Right, and if
Mhm.
somebody's in a jam or somebody needs prayer, we text that group of people. You know what I mean? And and all the guys say, "Hey, we'll be praying for you, brother." You know what I mean? It was all that kind of good stuff. But it's almost like you wish you almost had a group of people that were all connected like that. That once a month, we know that once a month, our text is going to blow up by saying, "Everybody get their budget done. Everybody need any emotional support." You almost wish you
Yeah.
had that hotline to, once a month to be able to tap into because you know, I know myself. I do better in a group than I do by
Mhm.
myself. I
Mhm.
really do. I do. When I have that support mechanism in place, I do much much better. It takes a lot of discipline for me to um to even see the value sometimes, of me getting this all done because filling out a spreadsheet is not like you're gonna celebrate, you know what I mean, or go have a
Yeah.
party. It's like, hey, I got my expenses done. But for me though, if I can make it easy on myself, like I said, with the spreadsheet that I'm creating, that's what I'm going to do. You know, maybe we
Yes.
can maybe someday teach people how to do a spreadsheet and make it easy on themselves. Maybe someday.
Well,
Well, you
and
know what?
and
I was going to move into executing your plan, but I didn't want to move too quick. Did you want to say anything else with regards
I
to our first
do.
topic?
Yes, because also that anxiety that I was experiencing just overall in my life, once I started to, every time I felt it, I would then just lean into, okay, now what more is possible? And then for about 2 days I would forget. So literally what I would do, I wrote on the inside of my hand, it sounds so kooky, but I wrote WMIP for what more is possible. On my calendar, I put it in repeat in the morning and I put it in repeat in the evening. So it would just be that reminder. And
Yeah.
then what happened one day is that I just started to become it. And I still ask it, right? I still ask it, but not 1,000 times a day. Like in the beginning, it was like every time, every trigger, 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 trigger. And I was like, in my mind, just to warn you and your audience about this, my mind at first, like those first couple of days, it was like, Sonia, you've been asking this. My mind starts to freak out a little bit. So let's be very clear on this. Because actually, the mind's job is to keep us alive and safe. And but then I felt this, and so there's a part of us that yes, we want to be kept alive, we want to be safe, but there's this other part of us that I just kind of feel like I'm kind of dead walking in through this world. And it's like there's like where's the adventure? Where's the fun? Where's the freedom? And there was just this disconnect that I was experiencing. And so my mind starts to freak out. Like, where are the results? You've been asking this for 2 days, Sonia. Where are the results? You don't have time to ask this. You got to be on the phone with, right? You don't have energy. You need to take a nap. And so what I realized was as my mind started to fire up in those ways, I'm like, oh, there's my tension. Hello, right? And so then
Yeah.
what I do, I would then lean into what more is possible? What more is possible in this moment? What more is possible in this moment? And then there's a freedom that actually happened. And so that anxiety that I was feeling at a fairly high level, probably 7 to 8 on a scale of 1 to 10, which is pretty high. And
Mm,
then it went down to, it's like a 2 now. I mean, I still have certain things that are more triggers. I'm more naturally an introvert. When I walk into a room, I'll start to feel myself close on up a little bit and I'll lean into, okay, now what more is possible, right? And then you walk a little bit taller and your eye contact is more genuine and things like that. And so it's just been absolutely transformational for me, not just in my finances and that wall of limitation, Keith, that I was experiencing. It's gone. I don't
yeah.
have that wall of limitation. I was actually creating it myself because when I was
That's
looking
excellent.
at my bank balance, judging it as good, bad, right, or wrong, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is great. It's like I'm just saying, okay, everyone, Sonia can't believe it's this great. No more good for Sonia. We would never think we'd cap abundance, but we do. And then also on the other side, I wish it would be more. That's kind of obvious. It's a limitation. And so now this is the truth. So now when I wake up in the morning, it is like every day is an adventure. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't wait for my day to start. Like I have no idea. I'm not smart enough to figure out this life thing, right? I know who to lean into. And so my antenna signal is truly looking for what more is possible. That's it.
Mm, yeah, I like it. I like it. I learned too, and I think it goes along with what you're saying, but feel free to chime in. But I think I've been taught that even if you can only do a little piece on Monday, then just do a little piece on Monday. You know, don't try to tackle or bite off more than you can chew. You've heard of that saying, right?
Mhm,
You know, or so I've learned to if I can just do my income on Monday, I'll do my expenses on Tuesday, you know, and I'll
mhm.
still get everything done for the month. If I can just break it up into little pieces, then I
Mhm.
don't feel so overwhelmed, you know. And so I think it goes along with what you're saying. Well, what else is possible? Well, what else is possible for me is another opportunity tomorrow to bite off a little more piece. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
then I can progress. Does that sound sort of similar?
It does
Yeah.
absolutely get started somewhere because sometimes just even the feeling of overwhelm is real and it can just be such a barrier to taking that next it almost can feel impossible to be honest with you when you're kind of
Mm.
in that kind of mindset and man the power on the other side of really moving through something like that man you look back and what happens is we build these financial muscles and it's something that we can really lean on it's you just it's a night and day difference.
Yeah. It's excellent. All right. Well, it's meat and taters time, right? We're going to
Okay.
execute our plan. We're going to talk about what we talked about in session two, folks. But now we really hoping that if you're listening, you're going to take some notes. Okay. Now, don't fear though, right? Sonya's right here, right? And so
Mhm.
you can reach out to her anytime, you know. But I'm just saying that if you want to take some notes, right, this is the time to do it. We're going to recap the budget outline as a whole, and then give you the step by step, blow by blow journey of completing the budget or executing your budget. Okay. So, Sonia, take it away.
All right. And so for me, I like to also call it, because I'll talk about budgeting certain different categories. I also like to call it cash flowing because there's something beautiful about cash and how it is flowing. And so how does our cash flow? We have cash coming in, so that's your income. And so that's the first step. We had talked about the analogy of a vehicle. And when we get into our financial vehicle, just like when you get into your own personal vehicle, you want to put your hands on a steering wheel. We have to have some sort of a structure because if we don't have a structure, it's all going to, it's like a river that doesn't have a bank and it becomes swampy and marshy and we're just like mucking through the swamp. A river with a bank, it's to guide and direct it and it can be just, it can just also be a beautiful ride. Sometimes we get off into like a little whirlpool and we get back into the stream, we kind of get going again. And so the analogy is very similar to that. So the first thing is how does the income come into you? And if it is a family, and I'll give a few examples. Sometimes it's every other Friday, sometimes it could be weekly, sometimes it's the first and the 15th. And so that is your structure with how the income is coming into you or your family. Now, I'll make one caveat. If you are an entrepreneur and you own your own business, which I am, so that speaks my heart and my language, it's actually a little bit next level when you own your own business. And so typically, if you're not paying payroll, because that would be your structure, whenever you pay payroll, I'd put you on a structure. I'd make that your structure. But if you don't, some business owners, sometimes they're the last ones to get paid and everybody else gets paid before them. So I'd put them on an artificial structure of a weekly structure. What day is the day of the week that you're the least exhausted? If you are on Monday following up phone calls from the weekend, you're exhausted on Monday. If you're on Friday, you're tired from your week. Those aren't good days. Maybe Wednesday's a good day. So that's the thing. We got to have a structure. And without the structure, this is all going to fall apart. How is your income coming in? And if not, make your artificial structure. Let me also speak to another you wouldn't think it'd be difficult though when I have clients that are retired and they're receiving Social Security income. Let's say the husband is the second Wednesday of the month, the wife is the second Wednesday, the husband's the third Wednesday, right? Or the fourth, or whatever it might be. That's actually pretty tricky. And typically, before working with me, they want to create an overall plan for their overall month. Though you can't spend all your money, when are the bills hitting versus when's the Social Security coming in? So for those clients, I actually put them on a weekly Wednesday structure. And there are 2 Wednesdays typically of a month that there will not be any income coming in, but the other two you will. Because what gets my clients that are on Social Security the most is that if it is a long month, it's a long month. Sometimes it
Mm.
could be a handful of days you've got to get through, right? And making it through those last few days of the month, it's very, very tricky. Or if it's a shorter month, of course, it's easier. So that would be my recommendation. So structure is where it's at. That's the steering wheel. Without the steering wheel in the vehicle, we're not going anywhere safely. And
Hmm.
once we have our hands on the steering wheel, that's going to direct and guide us and give us the actual structure that we're going to want. So that's income. When does income come in? Then the next piece is so that's cash flowing in. Now we got to talk about cash flowing out. And we want to understand, when are your bills due for the bills that you have like, let's say monthly or quarterly or yearly. When are they due? What's the name of the company? When is it due? And once you have your structure, which pay period is it going to align with? And you just basically, I would just basically drop it in that pay period that's responsible for it. And so then when we look at the bottom line numbers, we want to be able to look through the front windshield, because if we're sitting smack dab right now in the middle of a shortage, for an example, well, we wanted to see that actually probably a month ago so we could better plan and prepare. Though when we're sitting smack dab in the middle of a shortage, and I'm not talking about because we're going to Hawaii, like a shortage, right? We're covering our basics, the roof over our head, food on the table, lights on, and transportation, and there's a
Hmm.
shortage. We That's the birth of debt, right? And there's a limitation to that. So that's that. And so then at that point in time, we look to see, how can we bring other income in? How can we reduce expenses? Because we really do want to right size that. And so once we've laid out the expenses, we look at the bottom line numbers, and are there overages, are there shortages as we look ahead through that front windshield over the next, I recommend a 2 month time frame. Are there overages, are there shortages? Because if there's an overage here, it's going to cover the shortage. We've got to be able to see that. So I'll share my personal example. When I didn't do this, I would AT&T Universal was the credit card of choice. And we'd have a lump sum of income. I'd dump $2,000 to the AT&T credit card. I'm like, oh my gosh, life is good. I'm so successful at this thing. And then guess what? In 2 weeks, I was like, where's the credit card? Because I can't afford food. Because I actually, that 2000 that I put to pay towards old debt, I didn't know I was going to need like 800 of it like in 2 weeks. So I overdid it. And then
Mm.
I'm having to then go back into debt. So it was just like a like a just, you know what I mean? I'm not actually making the progress. And so the front windshield is everything. We have to be able to see, how are you balanced? What do you look like? Do we really actually need to reassess your decisions? And
Right.
or is there plenty, right? Or is there plenty coming in and we want to like land it, lay out what are your next steps?
Mm.
And so that's the front windshield, is looking ahead over the next 2 months. The last piece is the reconciliation piece. And this was the piece that I wasn't smart enough to figure out. It's then taking this plan that we have, and hardly no one does this piece, by the way. Like, God literally woke me up in the middle of the night and said, Sonja, very, very early on, over 14,000 consultations ago, almost 19 years ago, he's like, Sonja, good job. You have the steering wheel. Good job. You have the front windshield. You, sister, are missing the rearview mirror. And he says, you've got to take this plan and you've got to reconcile it to reality, which is the actual bank account. And when I did that reconciliation piece with my clients, I saw night and day immediate differences, because we actually had a tool to hold them accountable to the level that they wanted to be held accountable to get to the results that they wanted to get to. And so
Mm.
for me, it's a three-tiered approach: steering wheel, paycheck by paycheck, or artificial structure if you need to do that, front windshield to be able to look ahead, and then that rearview mirror piece to say, hey, where did our money actually go? Because when we look to see where it actually went, we can then change it. Whatever you think, if you've not looked at your numbers, I guarantee you, whatever you think you're spending on money, you're underestimating what it is. And so
Mm.
it's not that this is not a starvation diet, though. Man, there was a back in the day, I remember it was in a financial peace video, and there was this gentleman that was being interviewed, and it was the very first time that he was actually added up how much he was spending on eating out. And you could just see like this look on his face, and he was like processing the information. He was this country boy, and he just said, you know, because I think I ate my retirement. He like literally think he thought he ate his retirement. And so we just want to make sure, like, how are we making conscious
Right.
financial decisions, and
Yeah.
are we pulling this together so you're getting results rather than just
Right.
doing this again and again without getting the results that you actually deserve.
Yeah. We make it difficult, don't we? With credit cards and debit cards and easy to swipe or tap now. All you got to do is tap your card and all these crazy things. My grandmother, I was grinning because I was thinking of my grandmother, and that woman had an envelope system like Dave Ramsey used to offer people, and that envelope system, literally, my grandmother would put cash in there and say, "Okay, here in this envelope is all the money I have for food, and that's it." And once
Mhm.
that is empty, you so she made it. In other words, she made it last. She would make sure, like, okay, I'm breaking this up into 4 weeks or 5 weeks, whatever the month is. And she would allocate, and I mean, so because she knew she had that much money in her hand,
Mhm.
she was more conscientious of it. And I have
Yes.
a feeling because we're using debit cards and credit cards, and we've made it too easy just to overspend, right? And not realize that
Yes.
maybe, wow, did I eat my retirement? It's
Yes.
like, you know what I mean? Because you know, I don't know if I'm just tapping my card, I'm not keeping track, you know.
Yes.
Where if you had an
Yes.
envelope full of money and it was slowly going away, let me
Well, and
tell you,
keep That's an
yeah,
interesting point, and there's a word, there's a terminology for that. It's called frictionless. And so I don't need to introduce myself to Amazon. It's like at my doorstep almost before I purchase it. It's so
yeah,
frictionless. And so
yeah,
we've lost the feeling of a transaction. Whereas when you do use cash, that is
yeah,
a great recommendation as well. If you find like you don't know where your money is going, you can just create a few. I would say, probably food is the best place to start. It's the biggest black hole.
yeah,
And then what it does, because when you hand over that cash, you have a physical response. Your fingers start to sweat a little bit more, your eyes dilate. There is a physical sensation that happens, and you have that sensation like something just left me that's not coming back. Whereas where we tap the card, you tap the card and you get the card back and you get your stuff back. So like even energetically, there's not a true exchange. And we know we
that's very
spent money,
good.
but it doesn't hit the same
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Boy, is that good. That is good. You get everything back after you tap the card.
Yeah.
I actually, when I hand somebody a $20 bill, I still feel a little awkward, like uncomfortable,
Yes. And I
you
used
know?
to be a teller back in the day. I had to like relearn how to count money. And
Yeah.
also, I will say one of the things that what I do really like for an example, at Walmart, I will use Walmart online grocery shopping now. And that wasn't
Mhm.
available back in the day, like when I was kind of going through these steps. And it is beautiful because I can see exactly how much I'm spending and I can cut it off and I know what my meal plan is. I know what, and so it does help me stay in line with that budget
Yeah.
line item as
Yeah.
well, in a just an absolute beautiful way too. So there are some ways we can use technology
Yeah.
to help with that as well.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Well, excellent. So that was a good overview, and now, and I heard the steps, but did you want to elaborate before we continue on any of the other steps, or how do you want to end that part of the conversation?
I would just say no matter where you are, no one else is going to come in and do this for you. And
Mhm.
the default is to roll out of bed. The default is to, for most people, it's to wonder, oh my gosh, especially, at tax time, where did my money go? Like, I actually don't know where my money went. And
Right.
so I'm going to encourage you that it is your responsibility to know, because no one else is going to do it for you.
Mhm.
Actually, everyone else is going to step into to basically remove it from your hands. Though you want to
Yeah.
be the one to understand your goals and decide what those goals are in
Right.
advance to move forward with the income that you do have.
Yes. If I may, I'm going to throw something at you here because let's say somebody had $4,000 a month. That was their income,
Mhm.
$4,000 a month, and they've taken your advice and they've created some kind of tool to categorize everything that goes out. Okay, and then of course that is the budget. That is the budget piece. In the budget piece, we talked about maybe in the second video we did together. baby step one, baby step two, those kinds of things, right?
Right.
Can people learn more about those baby steps? Because I know we're talking about our income and expenses, right? But is part of the expenses part that we're going to allocate money towards, is that part of the baby step process, or how does the baby steps, I guess I'm asking, fit
Mhm.
in to the budgeting piece? Does that make sense?
It totally does. And so the baby step methodology is from Dave Ramsey. And what I love about that so much is that it gives a framework so that way you don't have to go back to the drawing board every single time you have some extra money or every single time. What it does, it provides a roadmap. And I'll be honest with you, I've used that as an overarching structure. I have not been perfect. Like that, we didn't follow it perfectly. And and you can still get there. So there's success in that alone. And so what happens is a lot of times people, Keith, will think, well, I'm just going to follow the baby steps, but I'm not going to do the cash flow piece. I'm not going to do but I'm just going to follow the steps. And so it's my experience that the whole cash flow budget piece, that's the whole foundation that everything
Yeah.
builds off of. If you don't have that piece, then you're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. So when you have that financial foundation, the steering wheel, the front windshield, the rearview mirror locked and loaded, now actually now we can get started.
Mm,
Most people don't even get to the starting point, right? Don't even get to the point where their information is in laid out
yeah.
in a way that can speak back and give them recommendations. Now we can get started. Now let's have a discussion about the baby steps. And so
Mm,
if you, the first step is to have $1,000 in the emergency fund. And the biggest feedback about that is, Sonja, $1,000, that is not going to be enough. Well, if you don't have anything in your savings account now, my goodness, how would $1,000 feel? Right?
right.
Quite fantastic, right? It's not meant to
Yeah.
cover everything. It's meant to give you just a little bit of margin, a little bit of breathing room. That's not a credit card. And so step one is 1,000 in the emergency fund. Once you have that, you can check that off. You go to step two, and it is to pay off your debt in order of be debt free for everything except the mortgage. And the recommendation is to put the debt in order of smallest balance to highest balance.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
everything extra you have, you dump towards that smallest balance debt. If you have two debts that are the balances are fairly close, then that's where we would bring interest rate into the equation. You would then, pay off the highest interest rate there. And then once you pay off the debt, you take that old minimum payment, put it to the next lowest balance, and you start to snowball your debt. And it can take a handful of years for most people,
Mm.
right, to become debt free, except the mortgage. It's actually it's quite fun, right, to kind of run those numbers and to see when that'll be because you start
That's
to get
can I
momentum.
interject there real
Mhm.
quick? That I think that that's why it's so important to know your expenses and what are you spending your money on? Because if you had, excuse me, if you had a lot of debt and you were doing what your country guy said there, going out to dinner, he could have been paying debt down if he skipped Burger King that day, or whatever the case may be, right? So
Right.
I think it's important, right, that you know your expenses, and then you could be robbing yourself of an earlier situation of being out of debt versus prolonging it by ignoring you. Well, I got to have my Starbucks,
Mhm.
well, maybe not. I mean, what's your priority here? Being out of debt, or,
Right.
you know what I mean? It's like,
Yes.
and again, there's a category for blow money, folks. So, don't panic,
Yes. Right.
but yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And this is where I had a client for an example and she said, Sonia, I'm so discouraged. She was, I can't even get to step one. I can't even get $1,000 in my emergency fund. Right.
Mm,
And sincerely, what I find is that there is an element in most people's plans. There is mismanagement going on, and it just might even be a little bit. And gosh, how can we get our arms around that? And so we can spend those dollars on paper on purpose in advance rather than wondering kind of where they went. And so after you're through with baby step two and you're debt free for everything except the mortgage, then the next step is to expand that emergency fund from $1,000. You take that thousand, it's your seed money, and then you create a 3 month to 6 month of an expense emergency fund.
mm,
And it depends, like on is it three or is it six or four or five? If everything's pretty status quo, health is good and you have employment, it looks like it's pretty secure, 3 months is good. And then, for any other variabilities that could make it a little riskier, then up to 6 months. And so that's really step number three. And what I have experienced as I've gone through these steps is that it's like, man, it's like step one, check, step two, check, step three, check. And it's like 2 steps forward, 5 steps back, one forward, three back, eight forward, two back. And that's what it feels like. It's not just like check, 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 done. And it took us several years to dig ourselves out of debt. I mean, that's how well we did that. Right? And
Yeah.
so you're not speaking to someone that's made every perfect financial decision, but I mean, I have the
Right.
cuts and bruises to prove. I mean, we did stupid with a
Mm,
capital S, and we were able to turn it around. But it took us some time. It took us some time. And so
yeah.
then, though, the fun thing is once you're through with step three, then steps 4, 5, 6, those happen in parallel. And by the time you get there, you are ready for some parallel to happen. And step four is to put 15% into retirement. Step five is to save for your child's college, if that's even in your plan, if you have children. And then step six is to then dump whatever you have left over and dump it towards as an extra principal to mortgage payment. And then once you're debt free with the debt free, including the mortgage, the last step is step seven, which is you give more and you invest more. So then the question, Keith, becomes, okay, I need to buy 4 tires for the car. Where does that fit into the steps? You know what I mean?
Right.
Life insurance. Where does life insurance? Where does health insurance? Where do these things fit into the steps? And
Right.
there's some things they're not even officially listed in the steps because it's a given you're going to have, right, with you, health insurance. It's a given you're going to have the life insurance. It's the given that you're going to, and so let's talk about the 4 tires. That's not an emergency, right? If you know
Right.
that your tires are getting worn and you're going to want tires or need tires in like 4 months, how much will it be? Start to put aside in savings, like, just break it down paycheck by paycheck to pre-save for
Right.
that. If you walk out to the parking lot and all of your 4 tires are slashed, well, that's kind of an emergency. We couldn't expect that, right?
Right.
And so just being very clear as far as what is an emergency versus what is not a
Yeah.
true emergency.
So that's a line item thing that you need to put on your budget, and you say, listen, I need to basically, like you're saying, save for this particular thing
Mhm.
every month. You know what I mean? From a maintenance perspective. Yeah, I mean that's just
Right,
common sense. Vehicles need maintenance, so you need a maintenance line item on your budget, right? And
right,
you plug in, that's what I'm going to save every month because I don't know what's going to happen, right? And
right.
so and I think can you explain why it's different um, from a person saving money for those possible maintenance issues, right? Even the house, maintenance issues with the house, same
Mhm,
thing, right? Versus the 3 to 6 months.
mhm.
What is that money supposed to be used for? And I think I know the answer, but I'd love to hear what you're saying. The 3 to 6 months is you save that up,
Mhm.
and basically for one particular reason. But go ahead.
Absolutely. That's a really good point, Keith, because they're actually in, it's like you're reading my mind, because actually there are two different levels of savings in my mind. There's the emergency fund, and the purpose of the emergency fund, it's for emergencies. It's for those things we can't predict. It's not a new
Right,
couch fund, for an example. And so that's that. Though there's another layer of savings, and I would call them holding accounts. And so for an example, like the home insurance for me, like I put a monthly amount aside for that, or my home taxes. I put a monthly amount aside and I have a savings account for each of those things. I'm not leaning on my emergency fund for that because that's a bill. That's a bill that happens yearly and I just have to want to save monthly for it. So
right,
that's different than an emergency, something that is not, something that I don't know about in advance. And so I call them different holding accounts. And like Christmas could be one. And when Christmas happens, then my Christmas savings holding account will be zero after Christmas because it served its purpose. But Christmas isn't an emergency, right? That's completely different. So two different levels altogether. Holding account versus an emergency fund.
nice, nice.
Now,
Yeah, I was
can I
hoping.
can I say, Keith? Can
Yeah,
I say though, that
yeah,
has been a progression. Like I didn't just like wake up one morning and start implementing at that level. And I'll
yeah,
give you my, like, for an example. when we were still using credit cards. That first Christmas, I wanted to, you know, pay cash for Christmas because gosh darn it, we're getting out of debt here. And I was able to put aside $400. I'll never forget, $400 I had cash for Christmas. Well, that first Christmas, did we spend 400? No, we spent more than 400. So I had the 400 cash, and then the rest was debt. But then since then, I've been able to cash flow it. So sometimes there's a waiting in period to it. It's not something that we can just go straight into,
Yeah.
at all times.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I had a feeling, and that was good. That was good because some people, the biggest thing that came to my mind was at 3 to 6 months, the reason you saved it was because if you got laid off and you had no other income coming in,
Mhm.
you need to
Right. Yes.
survive, folks. Right.
Right.
So,
It's true. That
you
is
know,
true.
yes,
Yes.
yes. That's great. That's excellent. Excellent. Well, I hope everybody got a lot out of the baby steps because that's a big thing and how it ties into and I love how you explained it and how it ties into your budget items that you've got listed there, how important it is to be cognitive of the fact that, boy, I better be careful here. It was a great illustration of the gentleman going out and spending money when maybe he shouldn't have realized, like, oh, I could be prolonging me having to work until I'm 70 versus retiring at 60. I mean, we really can do ourselves in. I think America, right, Sonja, we have a problem. We're so used to microwaves and everything coming quick at us that the idea of being disciplined and waiting for things, you know, is very difficult for us. And that's why I'm so big on people being healthy, because I've had people in my life where I visited them when I'm writing of an insurance policy, a medical policy
Mhm.
on them, and they come out with a list of medications that was longer than goodness gracious Constitution, you know. And
Mhm.
I was just like, how much does this cost you? She goes, well, sometimes I can't buy groceries sometimes. And I shake my head and I'm like, so obviously I go into hyper mode and try to help, but that's the
Mhm.
kind of thing I'm trying to help people. I want you to stay healthy, because I don't want you to suffer when you get older from things that you could have prevented, if you just implemented, a lifestyle change, difficult, yes, but impossible, no, you know.
Mhm.
And with all the right support pieces, I think, it's a good transition, right? Good little segue here. How can people, right, reach out to you? Can you explain the services that you offer them if they want to reach out to you? First, how to contact you, I guess, the services that you offer. Can you elaborate on that a little bit so people can get their head around how you're going to help them?
Basically, Keith, what I do, I know by the time somebody reaches out to me, I know the pain that they've been feeling. It's pretty high. And so I don't mess around. I mean, honestly, I just rip them through the freaking fire. I'm just like, I'm like, I can't take it. Like, I literally can't take it anymore. And I'm like, okay, we're done. We're so done with this. And so when I work with my clients, it's exactly what I'm recommending, like for all of you to do. It's what I do for you. I do exactly what I'm asking for you to do. I
Yeah.
create it's a 2 month deep dive because you don't just need a plan. It's also the implementation of it. And there'll be pay periods where, you guys are rocking it. And then other pay periods, it's like, oh my gosh, you know what? Nothing went according to plan. Like, I don't even want to pick up the phone when Sonia calls. I'm like, well, that's the time you want to pick up the phone the most. But honestly, my job is just, it's like I do it for you. It's like,
Yeah.
and so literally on the very first call of your 2 months, and it's unlimited support for 2 months. It's insane to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And so we were talking about, I wish there was a number some I could call if I'm like, that, yeah, my clients do that with me. But more importantly, it is for me to strengthen your muscle. If you feel like your financial leadership style isn't clear and it's steady, right, in those times of chaos or even in times of abundance, you're like, just like, man, we are totally blinking away money. Where is
Mm.
it going? Then I'm that clear. It's just a steady hand. And so I just do it for you. And I prepare. It's paycheck by paycheck. It's over the next 2 months. And then on that very first call, I present it to you. So immediately we're able to, number one, assess where you are. So on that very first phone call, you get your you get your vehicle on the interstate ramp. You get to set your cruise control. We get to start to play your favorite song. I present it to you. We see how you are balanced in your bottom line numbers. And then, by the way, that's just the starting point. That's just where
Mm.
we get started. And then based on your particular financial situation, um, it's very customized to where every single person is at. So I just do it for you. And what I do, I offer, it's a complimentary 30-minute call. And if on that phone call, I share with you everything that you need to go and rock this on your own, and I will be your
Yeah.
biggest cheerleader. And if not, then I can show you how we can make a good team with moving forward. And ultimately, the goal, Keith, though, is to strengthen everyone's muscles so that that way they're able to do this on their own. And
Right.
sometimes, some people just need to see what that plan's going to look like and be taught on it in good pay periods and bad pay periods. So by the time we're done with 2 months, you know how to do it.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. Now, how do they get a hold of you?
It would honestly, you can go to my website. It is Enjoy Consulting. It's spelled with an I, like literally I love what I do. Enjoy Consulting, or I'm on Facebook, under Enjoy Consulting, and also same thing with Instagram, Enjoy Consulting. So just, whatever is the easiest way to reach out. I'm
Okay.
here.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, that's great. Well, this concludes session three. This is great. But I think we ought to circle back with you because you mentioned something earlier, and you're always learning. You're always you're always growing in some areas, and I think people need to hear from you more often. So we're gonna circle back with you maybe in a few months if that's okay with you,
That sounds
and
great.
yeah, and have another time together. And I think people will benefit. Folks, really hope that you benefited from this conversation and the previous two. I also hope that you reach out to Sonja, right? I've had an opportunity to get to know her, and she has been a blessing. And so I wouldn't recommend anyone that I believe that might be complicated. so I'm recommending this person because I really feel in my heart that she can help, and she has a desire to get you back on a road to where you can experience peace like she is right now. So Sonja, thank you again. Appreciate you, and folks, thank you again for tuning in, and have a great day. Bye,
Thank
Sonja.
you. Thank you.